Joey Logano says that Ty Gibbs' words mean nothing. And defending Truck Series champion Ben Rhodes joins the show. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. A very special guest is joining us in just a few moments. Ben Rhodes, the defending Truck Series champion, will talk all about that night at Phoenix, what he's been up to this offseason, and how he's preparing for Daytona in less than 2 weeks and the upcoming 2024 season. I want to give a shout out to Kubota for helping make that interview possible. But before Ben jumps on, Joey Logano had some strong words for Ty Gibbs on his SiriusXM radio show. The two drivers have history, but things reached a new level Saturday night when Joey Logano confronted Ty Gibbs after the clash. Logano gave his side of the story earlier this morning on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, Channel 90. He said that last season, he and Gibbs had a good conversation. They talked about starting over with each other, back to zero. But then, according to Joey Logano, he was used up by Ty Gibbs 3 weeks in a row. That's what led to that retaliation late in the season at Martinsville. That was just straight up payback. But then, Joey Logano says that after Martinsville, he and Ty Gibbs had another good conversation. Ty called me afterwards, which I respected. We had a conversation, came to my place, and we talked for about 30 minutes. I thought, man, that was pretty cool. He was very humble. We had a good conversation about it. I thought, I've been through a lot of this stuff before when I was like him, right? I can see a lot of myself in Ty. So I was open. I've been through this before. Let me see if I can help the situation out. So we left and we shook hands and said, okay, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to respect each other on the racetrack. We're going to respect each other. Apparently that mutual respect didn't even last a full race. Final 10 laps of the clash Saturday night. Gibbs, Logano on the front row. Gibbs overdrove turns 1 and 2, ran Joey Logano up wide. There was some contact from Ryan Blaney, but it was Gibbs who first put Logano in a very vulnerable spot. Move didn't work out for either driver. Logano finished 4th. Gibbs lost the lead to Hamlin before eventually getting spun out. This morning, Joey Logano gave his take on how that late race restart played out. I get it. 10 laps to go in the clash, we're going to be aggressive with each other. But to completely use me up into the fence, not going to be okay with me. So, obviously, I'm mad about that. At that point, I wanted to make sure he knew that I was pretty upset about that, and that's not acceptable. I thought Joey Logano was completely justified in going up to Ty Gibbs after the race, confronting him. They didn't get physical. It was a passionate conversation where I think both drivers delivered a clear message. Ty Gibbs' message was, hey, you've raced people like this your entire career. Who are you to judge me? While Joey Logano's message was, hey, keep watching. You've messed with the wrong guy. I'm paraphrasing a bit based on what we could hear in some clips, but that's the gist. This morning, Joey Logano wondered what's next, saying, quote, now, where do we go from here? I don't know. I don't know. We had a conversation. He said all the right things. His words don't mean nothing to me anymore, so I'm not going to talk to him. But I don't really know the next thing to do. I'm at a loss at this point. Logano went on to say that he'd rather not go back and forth with Ty Gibbs, but that he is comfortable self-policing. Joey Logano said this morning that he will not be pushed around. I love this, y'all. Daytona is still more than a week away, and we've already got 2 good drivers with history beefing. Joey Logano is the veteran in this instance. He's been in pissing matches before, and often he's come out just fine, though I can think of one particular instance where it may have cost him a championship. My takeaway is that neither of these drivers need this right now. It's barely February. Joey Logano did not have a good 2023 by his standards. He became the first defending champion in the knockout round era to be eliminated in the round of 16. Ty Gibbs, meanwhile, is still a young driver trying to find his place and earn respect. The last guy, I'd argue, you need to pick a fight with is Joey Logano. Logano is not going to pull over for him. Joey Logano has plenty of experience racing rivals. Gibbs did a good job his rookie season racing mostly clean, avoiding any major controversies for the most part. I think he did earn some respect from many of his new peers. You'd hate to throw all that away by going back and forth with a 2-time Cup Series champion. Ultimately, this is fire versus fire. Joey Logano is aggressive, often selfish on the racetrack, very fast, And Ty Gibbs is aggressive, often selfish on the racetrack, and I believe he too will be very fast for many years to come. I'm not sure there's a way either side comes out victorious here. When fire fights fire, the only thing that's guaranteed is destruction. In this case, some battered, beaten race cars. If you're picking a side on this one, are you backing up Joey Logano, Ty Gibbs? Who's more right? Who's more wrong? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. One thing I know for sure is that Logano versus Gibbs will be very entertaining to watch. Speaking of entertaining, there are few drivers as entertaining in interviews as Ben Rhodes. He became a two-time Craftsman Truck Series champion this past November, and thanks to our friends at Kubota, he's here today to talk about that and much, much more. I'm now joined by Ben Rhodes, driver of the number 99 Kubota truck for Thor Sport, defending series champion Ben Rhodes. I should be more specific, Ben. I appreciate your time, appreciate you being on. My first question, how has being a two-time NASCAR Truck Series champion changed your life?
So, you know what's funny is I think I can answer that a lot better now. Everybody hits you with that question as soon as the checker flag drops at Phoenix. They're like, oh my gosh, your life has changed so much.
They want you to cry. They're looking for a tear, because that's good. That's good content.
Something. I guess so, because it's like 60 seconds after the checker flag and they want to know all about it. But, it really took the offseason to kind of settle into it, right? Get past all the events, all the championship celebration stuff, and then just get settled back into normal life. And it's changed, but it hasn't, right? Like you feel more validated. You feel like, okay, we did it the first time. That was like a 7-year drought of not winning a championship from the K&N series to the trucks. And now it's just validation. It's a feather in the cap, and it's knowing that this is repeatable. Like we can go out and do this every year now. We were, second the year before, we're first again. So I don't know. It's so hard to answer still, even with all that time. But I can say I am glad that certain things haven't changed. I'm still with Thor Sport Racing. I've still got Rich Lucius. I've still got pretty much my entire crew. There's a couple guys that have shifted around. But for the most part, things are staying the same, which is good because then we can repeat it.
Yeah. Hey, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was chaotic before, during, after the race at Phoenix. Can you take me back to that race, to that night? What do you remember about championship night?
Not much after.
Yeah.
So I got to settle down. But during the race, I remember a fair bit. The thing that caught my attention most was when the race flipped. We were running behind Corey Heim to start the race for the longest time. Like second. We're third on the track, but second is for overall championship standings. So I wasn't happy with that. I knew something was going to have to happen. And Phoenix is always just chaos in the truck series. The races are short. The stages are shorter. And, we've just got guys that are just throwing haymakers out there. So the race eventually flipped because of the way the stages are out. So myself and Corey found ourselves in the back. Grant and Carson are further ahead of us. And we were racing so hard through the pack, I knew something was going to happen. I remember being 3 wide, I think, with Corey, myself, and Grant at one point. And I'm like, this is stupid. We're just going to give the championship to Carson right now. So I think it was like a lap later. So I'm racing really hard with Corey. And he's starting to slide up towards me. I just let him go at that point. And then I just kind of try to follow him through the pack. And then, a few laps later, him and Carson wreck. And then that just put the showdown for the end of the race where it's like 10 cautions later, just overtime restart after overtime restart.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now we inherit this great thing, right? But then Grant gets past me, and then we get back past him. He pits. Now we've inherited this big lead. And it's like, oh, this is great. 5 more restarts later, and we get damage to the front end, and we almost lose it. So
yeah.
Just crazy. Nail-biter to the finish.
It was a roller coaster to watch. You kind of summed it up perfectly there, but you're like, you think 1 or 2 drivers are in control, and then you get the drama, a crash, you get restart, varying pitch strategy. It was, I'm surprised you remember it as well as you do, because even watching it, it was kind of a blur immediately afterwards. I want to talk to you a little bit about I guess, your future in trucks? Because you've been winning Truck Series races for 7 or 8 years now. I think you're entering your 9th full-time season, if I'm not mistaken. Do you ever spend any time, exploring Xfinity or truck opportunities, or are you happy with where you're at ThorSport?
I mean, yes and no. I'm very happy where I'm at ThorSport. I wouldn't change anything about that at all. They're the ones that give me my opportunity. This is where I love to be. They're like family to me. And what I mean by yes but no is no, I've never really explored anything. Yes, I'm happy where I'm at. Would I have interest in running some other races at some point? Yeah, I think it'd be cool to run a few Xfinity races this year if there's a way to do that. I would still like to try my hand at Cup one day, but I'm 26 right now, and if I could run trucks for ThorSport Racing for the entire length of my career, I call that a great career. I mean, look, my goal when I set out to do this was to race NASCAR and win championships, and we're racing NASCAR. We're in the Truck Series, and so far we've won a couple championships. So I like to see where we can go, and the big key factor with all this is ThorSport's been around for 30 years, right? They've been around for a long time, and I would say they are the most stable team in NASCAR because of that. I mean, they've been around.
That's a good point.
They're not going away, and we're just having fun. I probably, if I was racing for another team, might have been in trouble for my post-race press conferences. With ThorSport, heck no. You go have some fun, Ben. You guys fought hard for this, and do you. And I'm thankful for that, too, because I probably would have been in trouble if I was anywhere else.
Yeah, well, it does sound like it's a great fit. And you know what? You've had so much success in trucks. I looked it up. You're one of only 5 drivers, I believe, to win multiple Truck Series titles. And there's some greats like Ron Hornaday, Jack Sprague, Matt Crafton in that group. Like, that's pretty elite company to be a part of. What does it feel to hear your name sort of mentioned somewhat alongside some of those greats?
Even after all this time now, a few months later, I still don't even really register myself as that group. I think, myself and Todd Bodine are going to sit down and talk about that here in a little bit with Fox, and I don't have anything to say. Like, I don't know what to say.
We can hash it out. We can rehearse.
Yeah, I guess. Like, I don't know what to say about that. It's cool, but I don't consider myself being in that group. I consider those guys like light years ahead of me. But I'm like that with everybody too. I don't know what you would call that, like inferiority complex. I don't know. Like I think of everybody else being better than me, and that's probably one of the things that have driven me in my life is to try to get on somebody else's level, even though I feel like that's unobtainable. I feel like everybody's so much better, and I'm always scratching and clawing trying to get there. And even once I get to a point where statistically I could say we're at that level, it doesn't feel right to me. It still doesn't feel like we're at that point. So we just got to do more.
Yeah.
Just got to go win more.
No, keep pushing. It's good to always stay hungry. I got one more question kind of about Phoenix before we move on to this season, Daytona coming up, all that good stuff. But after the chaotic championship race at Phoenix last summer, there was a lot of discussion about aggressive racing in trucks, racing without respect. You've been in the Truck Series a long time. Do you feel like you've seen the racing etiquette change at all in trucks during your time? Has it gotten any better, worse? Has it stayed about the same and we're all just talking about it more?
So I'm going to zoom out, and on the broad scheme of things, I would say that in racing as a whole, people are racing harder, more aggressive, and with less respect towards one another and equipment. We saw that the week before the Phoenix race at Martinsville when the entire Xfinity Series clogged up the track at Martinsville. Mm-hmm. So Kyle Busch mentioned whether he's in truck, Xfinity, or Cup, it's the same thing. We just watched the clash. They're running over each other. So I don't think that's necessarily a truck thing, but here's what trucks do different. Is from my start in the Truck Series in 2014 and then full-time in 2016, the series has gotten like heads and shoulders more competitive. The field has gotten closer. We have the sealed engines from Ilmor. So instead of having a manufacturer difference where you can actually pull ahead of somebody on these restarts and you're gearing your engines specific to your motor, your engine builder's, specs, what they want. Now we're all the same. I mean, it's up to you on working the momentum and your foot and your gearing to get ahead of somebody on these restarts. It's really hard. The other thing is we punch a huge hole in the air. Like in the Truck Series, if you want to get away from somebody, it's like impossible, it feels like at times. you'll be side by side or you'll be nose to tail for multiple laps because our draft is so huge. I mean, we just punch a massive hole in the air. So our races are extremely close for that reason. And of course the races are shorter length.
Yeah.
So all of those factors I think just bunch us together, and it's just throwing haymakers. Like it's the whole race is a slugfest. And what do you do about that? I think it's just the evolution of the sport. Like the truck series hasn't really changed our rules package for setups as a whole that much either. So we went to bump springs last year. So those shaft springs that go on the shocks themselves, what that's done for us is it's allowed us to kind of compartmentalize the setup. Before there was some magic in how the springs would compress early on versus late stage compression where you're at max load in corners. Now you can separate that. You can tune those individually with those shaft springs on your shocks. So I will say I think that's made the field closer too, because now some of that magic is gone. Like you can tune it pretty quick, pretty easily. And as far as like really having to have a strong notebook, I think you can build that a lot quicker than what you had in the past. So the whole series is closer.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, I think, and I think it also speaks to the Cup Series. With the next gen, the field is closer together, and I think we've seen guys can't get away from each other seemingly week after week after week. That's a great point. Ben, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about Daytona coming up here in just a couple weeks. You've won this race before. You've won the season opener at Daytona. So what does it take to be in the mix in the closing laps at this super speedway?
Oh, man. So what's funny about that is I think back to my first race in 2016. We led a bunch of laps. It was great. It was awesome. And I was so nervous about every little thing that was going on. Like, I just thought when I was finally leading, okay, and the field wasn't as close back then either. Like, we could push and get away a little bit. Now you're just rubber banded, bumper to bumper. So back then I was so nervous. I was being very intentional about putting my truck on the yellow line, never leaving it. I didn't have a lot of patience once things kind of looked like they were falling apart. Now in the truck series, I feel like I'm trying to be more intentional with where I place my truck, more patient. Those are some big keys to it. And then also just finding somebody good to work with. When I first came in the series, nobody wanted to work with a rookie, and I don't blame them. But now I really try to go out of my way and find guys that I say, hey, if we're together, let's work together. But that can only go so far. Sometimes you're just paired up with anybody and everybody, and that will just lead to working with whoever you're around. And there's no code of honor at that point, and there's no agreement.
Yeah, well, it's always good. You usually have strength in numbers, usually a handful of Thor Sport trucks in the mix at the end of these races. We're looking forward to watching you out there in a couple weeks, Ben. Before I let you go, one of my favorite paint schemes you ran last year, you won the championship in it, that bright orange Kubota, those Kubota colors. How big is that partnership to you and your team? And you got any notable projects on your radar with your Kubota tractor?
Yeah, we love Kubota. They've been really good to us, and I gotta say, I have a lot of pride in getting their first championship in the sport. I think that's really cool. So it was really nice to celebrate with them and then just kind of validate the program. Like, you guys came in with us. I know you're working with other people, but gosh darn it, we gave you your first championship. So we love you. And I don't know. So that's something that drivers think about. Some drivers do. I do. Maybe not all, but I think about that. And I like to be more hands-on on like the marketing stuff, and I like to be more hands-on on those relationships, because I think that just adds value, especially in a day when like it's hard to maintain that stuff, right? Like there's so many different sports and avenues competing with sponsorship dollars today, that when you can actually go out there and have a real relationship, because these are good people from a good company, and you can have a real relationship, it makes it all that much more special and deep. But apart from that cheesy stuff, I've got a Kubota tractor back home here, and we've got a small farm, I guess. We aren't farming, but it was a farm at one point. There was cows and stuff there. Well, we've got that acreage now, and so I'm using that tractor to cut in a driveway. We're bush hogging the field. I just ran over a bunch of what's that? Sumac trees. We had these sumac trees. I ran them all over, and then we're bush hogging them. I just did that yesterday. We're just getting everything ready for kind of things to start kicking in and growing here. Yeah, we're clearing out some woods with it. We're cleaning out paths and trails. It's been pretty nice. I got bad allergies, so it's got a cab, so I can sit there in the cab and the air conditioning, and I can just make
That's nice.
laps. And I used to go out there and mow and do this other stuff, and I didn't have a cab. I didn't have nothing, and I mean, you're just like feel like you're dying afterwards from allergies, and everything's swollen. So yeah, I love that cabbed Kubota tractor. It is.
Awesome.
It's nice.
A literal lifesaver, it sounds like.
Yeah, like literally.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's awesome. Extremely versatile. Great to hear. Ben, I really appreciate you being on the show this morning. Good luck here in a couple weeks at Daytona, and good luck the rest of the season. Go defend that championship.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll see what 2024 has in store.
Huge thank you to Ben Rhodes for being on the show, and shout out to Kubota for helping make that interview possible. Head to KubotaUSA.com to find the nearest dealer near you and test drive a tractor today. That'll do it for this episode, y'all. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR every single day here on Out of the Groove. And as always, a big thank you to my very generous Patreon supporters. I will see you in the next episode. Got something very exciting, something Daytona related to announce here very, very shortly, so stay tuned. I'll catch you in the next video, y'all. Thanks for tuning in.